client has been out for an extremely long time, but still secured it. It was complicated. And so we're going to hear about exactly what happened and what is the creative solutions that we were able to use it to overcome. So it's a packed segment today because normally we only do one news and one success story, but I think both of these are so important that we want to kind of cram it up together. So with that being said, let's get to it, all right? So first, scams. Sophisticated, but not necessarily because it's sophisticated, but because the people receiving it is so vulnerable. You get this mystery text from ICE, from CBP, from Department of Homeland Security. What are you going to do? You're going to go up to ICE, you're going to go to a police and say, hey, what is this? Is this a scam? Most people who are in an undocumented state or who are in a pending adjustment status state or who's like in an F1 international student, immigrants are vulnerable. They are scared. And is without precedent. Last year, we've seen literally thousands of international students, tens of thousands of international students across the country get a text message that says their visa got canceled and they're deportable because what? A 10-year-old traffic ticket. 100% scam, right? No, it was real. So, the government does things so poorly that it looks like a scam. And when scammers do things a little bit better than the government and it almost looks real. And so the scary thing about these text messages, these flyers, and these phone calls is that they give you name, address, badge number. If you check it out online, it's real because scammers also have access to real office badge numbers and officers. So they pretend they are them, get the text, and now what do? If you don't self-report, if you don't make the payment, your family might be in jeopardy. It's extremely scary. Luckily, our clients was able to just forward it to us. We took a look at it and like, they're asking for money. I haven't seen any public policy about this. We researched AILA, we researched CBP website, we researched ICE website. Doesn't seem like this is what the government is doing. If they are doing it, there would have been an announcement. Moreover, there would have been a big revolt within the immigrant community as well as in the immigrant community. And so because of that, we said ignore it. And we found out it was a scam. But if we didn't give up that advice, what if they kept on talking on the phone? And what if they get scared? And then what if they did send that gift card? What if they did like actually wire the money over, right? They're not asking for much, $25 to $250. Yeah. But I mean, the people who are receiving these are so vulnerable. Just like senior citizens are so vulnerable, right? They don't know technology. They don't know banking. All these things are changing all the time. If somebody asks them and they have their personal information, they just trust them and give the information and suddenly their bank account is wiped clean, right? So these immigrants, especially if language is more restricted, it's a very scary time. The criminals are definitely taking advantage of the chaos that's within the immigrant community. And so we just want to warn everyone. If you receive any sort of email, phone call, text message, especially if it's directly asking for money, don't respond. If they're not asking for money, double check if this is legitimate. Don't respond either. Because if you respond like, who are you? They know that the number is real and they might keep on contacting you, right? Don't be surprised if they know your phone number, your name, your family's name, because a lot of that is public information. It's very sophisticated. A lot of leaks have happened in the past few years, right? Passwords and things like that. So don't be surprised that they know who you are. Don't respond. And definitely double check. And as the law office, what we do, so you could do for yourself, double check, is there any policy like this, right? Why would the government directly call you, right? Because most of the time, a real notice comes from USCIS. In the mail with a formal USCIS notice saying there's a court hearing, right? You got a notice of intent to appear for a court hearing because you have been, your visa has been canceled and now you're being deportable. That sounds crazy and sounds like a scam also, but that unfortunately is not. And they look through the past 10 years. Maybe you have a criminal record that you didn't know about and now it resurfaced. And so now you have a court hearing. That could be true. Your 45 has been denied. Your adjustment has been denied. And now you're in deportation proceedings. That could be true. But there's a formal notice, notice of intent to appear. Somebody texting you and calling you and asking for money, definitely fake. Just because they give you badge number and office number doesn't mean it's real. But anyways, what else?
So I was going to ask, because I've been through like a personal situation where they called and they gave me the name of someone that is my relative, saying that they were arrested in Tulare County. This was like 10:30 p.m. one day, and they called and they said, "Hey, did you know that such and such person has been arrested and is being held at the detention center in Tulare County?" It's just so happens that I do have a family member that matches that name. So these people that are calling you are going through your like family history, and they have like high levels of like looking up your information so that they know how to like, like grip
Yeah.
you into like giving information. And so I think I remembered a while back when we were talking about this back in maybe like a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
you had mentioned if they ever call you, ask for a callback number.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have to have, if you're calling from a government office, then you
Mm-hmm.
have to have a callback number, you have to have extension,
Mm-hmm.
and get a name and a badge number. So that's what I did. And they gave me like this bogus number. I said, okay, let me contact my family and let me call you back.
Mm-hmm.
And when I called back, it was a non-working number. But I think it's important just to know that like the first instinct is immediately like you feel this like, like sense of, oh my gosh, like someone is in trouble. Like, what do I do to fix it? Is more so like, let me confirm that this is correct and this is real so that I can actually like act on it. So, the first instinct should always be like double checking, like you're saying, but much more important when they are doing the investigation to make sure that they connect you to someone that you're already related to.
One pro tip, and it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do, but if you can master this skill, so important in life. The skill is answer a question with a question. If they ask you a question or they make a statement, you question it. Do you have a family member that has been detained? Or somebody was just detained? Are you so and so's emergency contact? Why are you calling? Who are you? Where are you from? Never confirm or deny anything. If a government officer, if you are being detained, if they're grilling you, answer a question with a question. And play the game of whoever makes the first statement first, like yes, no, or whoever makes a statement first loses. Okay, play that game, because scammers, they want information from you. Maybe they couldn't get your money, but if they know you are now connected with them and this person did get detained because it's public record, now they know how to contact you more, right? And they can find out where you live. Like if you go to LexisNexis, if you go to any government agency, you can probably find out all your relatives and all the key information. And so there's so much data bank that's online to track people down. And so scammers are out there. I hate scammers. But they are there and they're taking advantage of people. And so if there's anything you take away, it's that scammers are getting more sophisticated while the government's, standard of professional conduct is decreasing. So it's really hard to tell them apart. And the situations are so absurd, that people can be detained and suddenly nobody knows and no notice. It just seems like the rule of law is breaking down. So criminality is on the rise, taking advantage of the most vulnerable people who are afraid to go to the police. So you have to protect yourself. And one thing you can definitely do is just don't answer, but question. And get the information, call them back, and then double check. And then trust your friends and family who's really smart. Everybody come together and think about it, right? Identity theft is on a rise. It doesn't help that we're in this kind of world.
Yeah. And then if you have an attorney, right, like for our clients, we always say because you do have an attorney on record, if the government were to contact, they don't only contact you directly, they are supposed to go to your attorney as well. So that's another thing like to keep in mind. If you get this phone call, if you get this text, is like, always check with your attorney, because somehow they need to contact us as well. And usually, as of today, we don't have a form of contacting the government through text or phone call. I mean, there are lines that you can call, but it's usually automated lines. It's not, like a live person taking the time to call or pick up the phone. So I think it's important, like for any person with a pending case with immigration, is like contact your lawyer if you have a lawyer. So yeah.
And definitely don't joke around, right? Like, let's say you're saying like, you think they're a scammer and you start saying you're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah. No.
What if it was the government actually calling you and now they have it on record that you claim to be a citizen? That will be a nightmare, right? So don't make any statements in the positive or the negative. Question them. And, If they call you like, wow, the government actually calls now? This is really good customer service, right? Or where were you trained? How long have you been training for? Like, question. They give you a question, you have to ask another question back. Keep and play a game how long you keep this conversation going. Because if they're scammers, they're on the clock. They have to scam 10 people per day. You know, if you're taking up too much time, they're not going to get their quota. So if they hang up, that's a pretty good sign that was a scam, right? But definitely be careful out there.
Yeah.
We're going to jump to the second news story.
Yeah, feel free. Anyone in the chat, feel free to ask some questions. I'll take them down and we'll ask. So any immigration questions, feel free to ask. On TN, I'm a Canadian citizen. AOS filed for EB3 perm with India. Sorry, just going to pull this one up.
Following?
Yes. Oh, I think I don't see that comment again. Can you go ahead and just ask that one again? Do you think that after 90 days, the Trump administration will provide an update regarding the visa pause?
I do not think so. I think the visa pause for the 75 countries will last potentially another few years.
I did just get my change of status from a visa to get my green card. So what is the time frame there, and what should I be looking for?
I'm assuming you filed for adjustment of status, and you just got the notice. And so most likely within 9 months, you should be able to have the fingerprint and interview, and then hopefully your interview gets approved and you get a green card. Some cases are a little bit more nuanced, where there's a backlog, where there's a retrogression, then it could take a lot longer. Definitely, there's some marriage cases that took 2 years or 3 years before they even first adjudicate. So depending on your case type, but generally speaking, we're telling people expect 9 months. A year and a half is a long time. Some people get really lucky, maybe 3, 4, 5 months.
Okay, on TN, I'm a Canadian citizen. AOS filed for EB3 perm from India with a different employer than TN. Do I need to wait for 180 days to work for the current employer with a green card EAD, or can I work for them sooner because I'm waiting for my EAD right now?
You should not work for the new employer, right? The one that you're not on the TN on. You should not work for them until you get the work permit. I don't know if that's the question you're asking, right? So right now, you are still on TN. You have the right to keep on working for the current TN employer. I wouldn't, and you cannot work for anybody else until you get that work permit.
Now, on this AOS question follow-up, the interview in person or how, may I ask? So will the interview be in person? I think that's the question.
Most cases are now scheduled for interviews. Business immigration scheduled for interviews, family-based immigration scheduled for interviews. That's what they've been saying. They said that all last year. They said that this year. And we are seeing a lot of interviews. And we're seeing very strict interviews if you're like VAWA or other types of cases as well. So it is getting stricter and stricter. However, we do see some cases have waivers and just directly pass and get a green card. Most of those are maybe like family-based petitions, as in like children with birth certificates, born in wedlock, right? But there are a few that are still getting approved without interviews.
I am a Canadian citizen, born in Iran. My dad petitioned me, F2B. I-130 approved, had my interview in 2024, been on AP for 22 months. Should I file a mandamus, or is it a waste of money?
You've already filed for adjustment status. You waited for a long time. You're on advanced parole. You're in lawful status here. You push the government to make a faster adjudication. If you have a super strong case, right? Like, this is what the government can do. They always can say, we're doing FBI background checks. And that could be infinite amount of time. And so you're really pushing the mandamus action to force them to say, you can't just do an FBI check, even if you are even doing an FBI check, right? You never told us you're doing an FBI check and background check for that long. But everybody else got approved within 9 months. How come mine is taking now years? Mandamus is not a waste of time. We've seen so many mandamus actions succeed. It is expensive. Um, it's more so a form of peace where you feel like, okay, I did everything I can, and now within 6 months and 9 months, I'm pushing things forward, as opposed to just always waiting in the dark. That is the mental benefit you get.
Okay, so they're in Canada right now.
Oh, so it was consular.
Oh, it's consular. Oh, you can't do mandamus action.
I see.
Yeah, if you're in the U.S., but I mean, you said they're on AP.
Yeah, so
I
no
thought,
advance, no AOS.
yeah. I thought if they did adjustment of status and they did advanced parole, then you could potentially do the mandamus.
I see. Okay, so for this TN, they filed for EB3, different employer than TA. Their question is, can I work for the current TN employer once they get their EAD?
Yeah.
For even if the EAD is the EB3 is with a different company?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, some lawyers, many lawyers, expect the pause to end by the end of next month, but it was indefinite or described as indefinite. The commentator doesn't think it'll last 3 years since that would create a lot of backlogs.
I totally agree with you that it will create backlogs. I don't think it will create a lot of backlogs. It might actually shorten the backlog for a lot of other countries. And the reason is because this stopped immigrant applications. But a lot of these people from the 75 countries, a lot of them have non-immigrant visas as well that they could fly to the US and do adjustment of status, right? And so will there be a lot of backlog? Yes, for those 75 countries. But how many are there in the grand scheme of the United States, right? If you think about when the United States pulled people out of Afghanistan, the I-130, when in the things that are happening in Israel and Ukraine, I mean, just globally for that matter, right now, so many cases got pulled to USCIS that they had to process immediately, you know? So I'm just thinking the public charge rule is so central to President Trump's agenda, his first term and his second term. He is not likely going to let up so easily and drop it. They're going to emphasize on it. They're going to create policies. I think they're going to expand it. And they're going to make it into more so a permanent fabric of the State Department as well as USCIS. That's my theory. We'll see. You know, I mean, I could be wrong.
I-751 denied, 290B submitted, NTA dismissed by judge. How long will it take for them to respond?
There's no set time a 290B has to be responded to and open. We have seen things as fast as 1 to 2 months, and we've seen things as slow as 9 months or longer during COVID time. So kind of just adjudicate it accordingly, right? If it's a simple motion to reopen that that they could do, right? Maybe you just didn't provide enough documents. The denial was very clear. You submitted 290B. It was really strong. Yeah, they reopen it and approve it, right?
Okay, so follow up for this AP in Montreal. So they're been on AP by Montreal Consulate for 22 months. So what is the best answer on the mandamus? Can they file a mandamus? Is it a waste of money?
Mandamus is only forcing U.S. government agencies to make a decision. So if you did file adjustment of status and you are on advanced parole and you're flying back and forth, you can do mandamus against USCIS.
But if it's admin processing at the consulate?
But if it's admin processing at the consulate, mandamus will not work. So we would not suggest mandamus against consulate.
I see. Okay, so feel free to keep putting down questions. I will take note. But I want to get into this birthright citizenship. This was something that was talked about in Congress yesterday.
And so this is Congress doing a fact-finding analysis and weighing the pros and cons and discussing it before the Supreme Court decision. And why is this important? Because whatever the Supreme Court decides, there is a high chance that they will just kick it back to Congress to make a formal ruling to change the Constitution, right? And change the interpretation of the Constitution. So that's why this is important. And in hearing this hearing, right, the transcripts are all online. You can easily find out. There's a lot of players. There's people who are extremely for it, and there's people who are against it, and everybody is discussing the impacts of it, right? Very similar to what you will see at the Supreme Court trial. But I want to share my take on it. I'm a certified immigration specialist. I know this area extremely well, and there's a lot of things I feel like they missed. And it's convoluted, so I want to break it down in as simple terms as possible. The key issue here is the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, is a U.S. citizen. The whole question, this entire debate, is what does subject to the jurisdiction mean? We're not debating whether or not you're born here, right? All persons born in the United States. Okay, there's no ambiguity there. Everybody's a person unless you're like a horse, right? You're born, you're a person, you are a citizen. But it says, and subject to jurisdiction thereof. So one party is saying, well, if you are unlawful in the United States, or if you're a tourist in the United States, you're not really part of the U.S. fabric. So your children shouldn't be a U.S. citizen. You are a person, you did give birth, but that doesn't mean they are a citizen. You're not subject to the jurisdiction. And then there's a lot of debates regarding the ramifications of this. Well, how does the states know? And how does a hospital know who here has visa status, who doesn't? Are you going to make every single institution, the hospital, the doctor, the midwife, the nurse, everybody go check immigration background of every single person? Only USCIS has that information. Are you going to make that like open source? Everybody could check everybody's immigration status, right? Like, and what if one state doesn't do it and another state does it? And so one state they're a citizen and another state they're not? Like, how confusing and how disruptive would that be? So there's a lot of debate about the practicality of this birthright citizen issue. But it goes deeper in talking about what the motive is. And I think that's the key thing, right? When you analyze law, that's something I learned in law school. Law is really just public policy. And what's public policy? What's good for the country? And what's good for the country? That's your opinion. What is good for the United States? What is a good public policy? Why should we have birthright citizenship in the first place? And then once you figure out the public policy, then you come up with a law that codifies it. That is law. So now the Constitution has been set for a long time. People born here are citizens. It made sense. It made good sense because the United States wants to expand their population size, right? We want more people to be citizens, to till the land, to expand the western frontier, manifest destiny. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of buildings to make, a lot of wars to fight. And so more citizens, better. We need people in this land to expand. Have we gotten to a point in the United States where we don't want people? So that's a big discussion. Now, really it boils down to two camps of people, right? Because if you think about it, if somebody's born here in the United States, what's wrong with having more U.S. citizens? Do we not want people to buy cars, buy homes? What's wrong with having more U.S. citizens? Isn't that a good thing? Isn't that just a lottery, more chances for more Einsteins and more Nobel Prize winners, right? Like, the more people you have, the better it is. It really boils down to two main camps of people. One camp are the undocumented people that have crossed the border over the past few decades, which is a separate story on its own because it's a self-inflicted problem. The United States created this arbitrary rule, so people had to just come here illegally and become barred. That's a different story. But there's a group of people, and there are millions of them, that have had children, and now the children are U.S. citizens. And they're growing older. And more people are still coming, right? Less numbers compared to the Biden era, but still people are crossing, and they give birth, and they're U.S. citizens. Should that be stopped? That's one camp that is of concern. The other camp is birth tourism. People from overseas flying in as a tourist, give birth, and go back home. And now their children raised, grown, read, bred, taught, educated, quote unquote, brainwashed, come back to the U.S. when they're 18, 20, 21, and they are U.S. citizens and have every right and privilege of a U.S. citizen. What does that should that be? Is that a concern? This situation, both camps, definitely didn't happen when the founders codified it in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the concern? What is the threat? And you can think about this in a lot of ways, right? Is it a good thing for the United States to have U.S. citizens grow up in a different country? It didn't use any taxpayer dollar to educate them, to raise them. And if they passed away overseas, they didn't use hospital bills in the US or a cemetery in the US, right? And they grow up to be a highly educated individual. If they want to come back to the US and they contribute to the economy immediately, that should be a good idea in some respects, right? Because for the first 18 to 21 years of a person's life, they are just sucking, economic activity out of the world, right? Parents, the government, were just pouring resources into these individuals, and they're not contributing any because they can't do child labor, so they're not doing anything. They're just consumers. It's very tiring for the parents. But if they grow up 20, 21, 18, they come back, now they're productive members, and they immediately start working and paying income tax. Should that be a good thing? Should not be a good thing? Obviously, national security is thinking of, what if they are now brainwashed and they come in as a spy? Maybe that is a concern. Or maybe it's a concern like, well, now they get the citizenship and then undocumented individuals get their citizenship and they are still starting to apply benefits for other people. Well, that is a concern, and the United States doesn't want chain migration, and so they stop that. I'm going to wait for the camera. No, we're good? Okay. So that's where I come with my prediction. And I'm not just predicting things out of thin air, right? The existing immigration law, as it is right now, there are lots of restrictions on U.S. citizens' privileges. I mean, most people know if you're a U.S. citizen, you can vote, right? You can go serve on the jury duty. I don't think that is the biggest concern. Maybe. I don't think that's the biggest concern. I mean, it's hard enough to get people to vote in general, so we're not really afraid of people, more people voting. But maybe that is a concern. I don't know. But in immigration terms, if you are a citizen and you want to pass on your citizenship to somebody else, your children who's born abroad, or you want to petition somebody, the consulate, as well as USCIS, as well as Department of Homeland Security, they have a lot of regulations and rules, right? And you have to have physically been present in the US after the age of 14. There's a lot of rules that they place on you before you can extend your ability as a US citizen to grant rights for anybody else. So one thing that I predict will happen in this big grand debate in the next 4, 5, 6 years over the birthright citizenship is that it might not go completely as green, where it's like, if you are a tourist or if you're undocumented and you come in and you give birth, absolutely no citizenship. I mean, that's one end that's very, very extreme. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle where the people who are born, and if you are born from an undocumented family, maybe your ability to petition people is going to be more difficult. You're going to have more requirements. Maybe instead of 21, you might have to be 26. You might have additional requirements to prove you are financially able to support the family, not just your age, right? Or maybe you have to have resided in the U.S. for about 10 years as a U.S. citizen in order to have any of these right privileges, right? Or if you're born here but left the U.S. and you want to petition somebody else, maybe you have to have an interview and you have to pass all these other citizenship requirements as well. So there's all these other requirements I think it's going to be added that prevents the big concern, whatever it is of why it's bad to have birthright citizenship. I think they're going to, USCIS and the federal government will come up with things that prevent that. I just don't think it's good public policy for the United States to change the Constitution when what they are concerned about is so narrow, right? The undocumented birthright citizen, people who are born here, they grow up here, they're just like the other children. And are you going to disqualify all of them? The people who are born abroad, birthright tourism is that a bad thing? There are good public policy arguments why that is actually a good thing for the United States. Just like why it's a good thing for green card holders and U.S. citizens to leave the United States and live abroad because you're not sucking out the U.S. insurance system and you live abroad, right?
Mhm.
People come to the United States, work hard, achieve your American dream, and then in your retirement years, get out of here. That's like part of the formula.
Mhm.
And so directly canceling constitutional, changing the amendment, and I just don't foresee that happening. Whereas just changing your USCIS policy, that is, I think, much more of an appetite for most Americans and still advancing the public interest and the public policy of the United States. But this thing is going to go on, and that was just a massive hearing. We're going to hear more about it. But I guess for the people who do have U.S. citizen children abroad, and if you are banking on U.S. citizen children petitioning you, prepare for this, because if your kid is in junior high, in high school, your original timeline of them petitioning you in 21, that might be pushed back. There might be other requirements. You might want to come up with a plan B. Maybe you want to come into the U.S. right now with a L1 visa, with an H1 visa that allows for immigrant intent, and then do adjustment status here. Because if you are abroad and the consulate will deny you, potentially just like the 7-5 country ban, right? The consulates have a lot of authority. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's just so interesting how we now are talking about people that are coming in whichever way, like tourist visas, undocumented, that just came to have children here, but how the government now looks at it as a threat. Like it's no longer, it's just a child being born and it's not just a human life. I think that's kind of like what impacts me the most, because I don't think I've ever seen this anywhere else in the world. I don't think, any other European country is talking about people that are immigrating and how they don't want, these children that are born in their soil to be now citizens and part of their society. I think it's a lot deeper than just an immigration process that just, like a legal matter, is much more like, what the U.S. is portraying to the world. Like this, American dream. Is it really now the American dream?
Yeah.
Right? Is it really worth all the sacrifices that people make? Because when you think about it, people that are here, that are born here, like families and lineages that are in the U.S., I mean, you don't really see a lot of, difference. Another child is born and then you pass on your inheritance and then they become successful. But for the people that have to uproot themselves, what does that really look like? Is that really now worth it? And is that going to change the way that other countries start to, like, I guess, just develop? Talk about Mexico, just right on the border.
Right.
Are they now going to implement more programs and try to give their citizens more opportunities? And, dealing with, the violence, are they trying to tackle down on the violence so people don't continue to immigrate?
Right.
How is this going to impact the whole world? I think it's just interesting to see what this is going to end up at. I remembered back in 2005 or 2007, they already talked about birthright citizenship. So this has been an ongoing topic for probably the last 20 years, where, people get nervous and then it doesn't go anywhere. And then other people are like, oh, it's not even worth, like making the sacrifice. So it'll be really interesting on how it develops. But again, it's just not a legal matter. These are lives of human beings that are, trying to just get through life.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit sad, but it's just interesting to see how it develops. And I think most importantly, we continue to live our lives, because I mean, this is an ongoing like legal battle that takes years and years. I mean, 20 years happened and it just came up again. So it could be another 20 years and it goes nowhere. So just thinking about, those people that are like directly affected by these, policies and decisions that the government is making. Just continue to live life, like you always say, continue to live life as normal as possible, and do what you can with what you have, to keep moving on, for now at least.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to talk about some of the legal arguments.
Sure.
The government, and then because law, it's not just a matter of public policy; it's also interpreting the Constitution and laws that have already been passed.
Yeah.
and there is a clear method for changing the Constitution.
Right.
So yeah, what are some of the legal arguments the government is using in this case, and then what other scholars are saying?
Right. Well, that's the interesting thing, right? You almost start with what do you want, and then you try to come up with arguments to support it, right? So in this case, they're saying subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Well, back in the day, you have to take a boat, you have to come here. It's really hard. So subject to the jurisdiction thereof, that means it's everyone. And then other people are saying, well, that doesn't apply to people who cross illegally here, right? And then both parties in this hearing recognizes, well, what about Native Americans? They are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States of America at that time as well as now. And are they not U.S. citizens? They are born here. So there's a lot of complexity to this, but basically, essentially, it boils down to one party saying it's everyone, and it's way too complicated to change, and it's not good public policy. It's not good for the United States. Yes, there are these quote unquote national security threats, but we could address that in a different way. We don't have to cancel and change the Constitution. The other party saying, no, it should only be, well, it's not the other party, it's just defending President Trump's executive order. It's only green card holders and U.S. citizens. Only green card holders and U.S. citizens who give birth, they are U.S. citizens. Everybody else, you're just a temporary passerby. You don't get, a permanent annual pass to become a U.S. citizen. And that's the big confusing debate.
Okay, so we'll take some more questions and then jump to talking about the success story. Give a success story. So following up on this admin processing, it's been almost 2 years. I just have to wait? There's no way to make this faster? I just have to keep waiting?
We've had a couple admin processing that took a long time at the consulate. And what you could do is you could file national interest exceptions. So you argue, this is too long, I'm really important to the U.S., I really need to go. So if you qualify for that, if you look into that, you could try. But yes, you just have to wait. You are at the mercy and at the pleasure of the U.S. government in granting these visas. If you're in the United States, you can have the courts hold USCIS accountable. But the bad thing about being overseas is that they have consular non-reviewability, so it's completely up to the consulate.
I have my I-130 approved from Belize. Would I need to go for a consular interview or enter with a visa?
You're from Belize?
Yes. I think they're in Belize right now. Their
Oh.
I-130 is approved. They're wondering about, do they have to go into the U.S. to go for the interview?
No, they can do consular processing.
Yeah.
They can do the process overseas.
Is Belize part of the 75-country ban? I don't know.
I don't believe so, no. I don't
Okay.
think so. I don't
Okay.
think so, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
Double check. If you're part of the 75-country ban, then you cannot go through the consulate. You just have to wait until it's lifted before it gets approved, right? And so, but if you're not part of the 75-country ban, then you could do the consulate.
And then it also depends on priority date. Who is the petitioner, what type of petition.
Yeah.
Is it a family preference? Usually you have to wait for the priority date to become current before you do the consular interview. So.
Now, even if you do want to come to the U.S. to do adjustment status, it's actually not an easy matter anymore, right? How are you going to come? What visa are you going to come? What are you going to say to the customs officer? Are you going to say you are deceiving the officer in fraud and misrepresentation, right? So it depends on what visa category you have. Ideally, you will have a H or L visa that allows for immigrant intent, so you could come in and then file adjustment status. But if you don't, then it becomes a much more trickier situation.
I got EB1 45 RFE for medical. What are the chances, or the approval chances, review chances?
If it's just a medical exam, you just get a medical and send it back in, and that's relatively fine. But that's the request for evidence is probably just on the 45. So you still have to wait for your EB1. But if your EB1 is approved and your 45 is just a request for evidence for medical, you should be in good shape.
So yeah, we have a lot of questions about the 75-country ban. You strongly think it'll be 3 years? Isn't it illegal to have an immigrant visa pause?
Is it illegal to have an immigrant visa pause? Well, the thing is, let's call President 2.0 compared to President 1.0. President 2.0 is a lot more sophisticated than President 1.0.
Mhm.
And if you just compare the policies, right, it's one and one the same, right? There's the flight cancellations, there's the travel bans, there's a public charge. So many things he did the first administration all got fought back and canceled and didn't succeed. The second time around, everything he is doing and is going to do is all succeeding because he learned so much from the first time and he had many years to perfect it. So let's talk about the visa ban, right? 75 country ban. He's limiting it to immigrant visas, public charge review at the consulate.
Mhm.
That is very, very narrow and very, very limited. So he's not canceling all immigrant visas for the whole world because I mean that would be complete violation of the consulate. He's just doing this national security analysis. That's his prerogative. That's his presidential power. That is why, quote unquote, it's not illegal. It's going to be challenged in court, like everything he does, but I think he has a strong chance in winning. And then, just like the tariff situation, if he does lose, he could institute something else. All right, that was a 75 country public charge review. Now I'm going to do a 75 country criminal background check review. That's just he has the executive authority to come up with something else, right? And so he really wants to kick off this public charge thing. He really, really wants it. The first time, the second time, he strongly, strongly believes that many people, especially from the 75 countries, come into the U.S. and just takes advantage of the U.S. taxpayers. That's his strong belief. I don't have the stats on that. I don't know if it's true or not. But he is convinced that more people should be denied. And because they don't have a good policy in place, they're going to create that. So what's worse than a 75 country ban, let me tell you, is that it gets lifted. Okay? Review is over. We came up with a policy. Thank you for waiting. Please come back to the interview. We have this new 12-step process to adjudicate every single person to see if you're a public charge or not. And guess what? Everybody fails and everybody gets denied. So it's not just a pause anymore, it's a straight up denial. That can happen. What if he requests 10 years of tax return for every single individual and you have to prove that you can substantially support yourself in the designated home in the United States? You know? I mean, it's pretty up his alley. That's what I'm saying. And so, you know, if there was nothing else going on in the US, then there's a high chance that they can spend a lot of resource, USCIS, the State Department, to come up and polish to figure out this public charge. But with everything that's going on in the world right now, Iran, Ukraine is not over. Who knows what, you know, the midterms election is going to hold? Who knows what's going to happen with the Epstein files, right? There's so many things that is taking attention from everyone. Is there an intern even working on this right now, you know, at the government side? That's why I think this public policy is going to just get dragged on until some sort of program comes out. The lawsuit will unravel, and we'll see what happens. But by the end of his administration, he's probably going to come out with something with a public charge rule that is going to solidify for the 75 countries and rest of the continents all around the world, as well as with USCIS. But that's just my prediction from seeing his motive in the past and in the present. I might be wrong. I wish I am. Hopefully I am. Because we have a lot of consulates, clients that are waiting.
Okay, we'll take two more questions and then jump into the success story. So should we be worried about my husband's DACA biometric appointment tomorrow? He doesn't have any record at all.
Not necessarily, no. We've had a few clients going for biometrics appointments starting this year and haven't really seen any, you know, like negative effects of going to the biometrics appointment. It's important not to miss the biometrics appointment. Definitely go get that stamp on your paper and make sure that they, if it's a recurring, like a renewal, and I'm assuming it is a renewal because of the policy right now, they only take the prints from 2 fingers and the photo, and that's it. Just, you know, pro tip. But yeah, haven't really seen anything negative.
Good. That's good. Okay, on this EB1 medical RFE, got the RFE today. My priority date is current. So what are the interview waiver chances? I think that's what they mean. I view waiver chances.
Oh. I mean, I don't know. We had a EB1 45 and get interviewed 3 times. Last year twice, this year once, and then got approved. So just prepare well, right? Just prepare well. Go in. I mean, happy to do a mock interview with you. We just charge $250 consultation. I'll share everything, and you should be fine. But definitely prepare well. Know your I-140. Know your 45. Know your plans.
So you'd say low chance on the interview waiver?
Oh yeah. Well, and I don't want to say that. I mean, they're all supposed to get interviews, right? Everybody's supposed to get interviewed, right? So if you get a waiver, you're very, very lucky. So prepare as if you're supposed to get it.
Okay, so we'll jump into the success story today, and then if we have time, we'll answer some more questions. So feel free to keep putting the questions down. I know we have some other ones. We'll take note of them and ask them afterward.
All right. Today's success story is about somebody who's applying for citizenship, the N400, but they had a lot of issues, meaning they were traveling a lot, they were out of the US for over 6 months, and they had a very difficult officer and a very difficult interview. Gabby worked with the client, powered everything through. Can you tell us a little bit more what happened and what's the solution?
Yeah. So this client, I think what made her the most nervous was that she was out of the country for 9 months. She went back to her home country to process her divorce. So even though she got married in the U.S., she thought it was a better idea to go get divorced, somewhere else. So she went back. She processed her divorce. It took 9 months. So when she came back, she got married, remarried to another person. The spouse was undocumented. So when she filed for her citizenship with another office, that office marked that she was single, that she was not married again. And I think it was all down to the reason of she got her green card through marriage. So her original green card was a 2-year green card, did the 751 process, got the 10-year green card, and then after she got the 10-year green card, her husband abandoned her. So she was devastated. She wanted to be with her family. She went back to her home country, decided to process a divorce there, and essentially came back to the U.S., met this man, remarried, and now for filing for N400, she was already married, but the other law office had marked that she was single. They also had not marked that she was out out of the U.S. for 9 months. So when she reviewed her application after they filed, she noticed all these mistakes, and she said, I got really worried because now my application is incorrect.
Right.
So she contacted us, did a consultation. I pretty much explained what we would usually do for these type of clients. She decided to come and work with our office. So the first thing we did was we had to withdraw her previous N400 and explain that there was erroneous information within the form that she's going to refile. So we withdrew that application. Now, how do we present the real facts, and how do we go back to now saying, never mind, she's not single, she's married? And how do we prepare for an interview? Because now, why was she hiding that she was married?
Right.
There's going to be a lot of suspicion at the interview. So I already knew from the beginning that she was going to have a really tough interview, regardless of, right?
And it's not always that we withdraw every single case that has some errors on it. If there's a error on a 45 form, an N400 form, we could continue to push it through a 751, converting it to 751 waiver. We don't always withdraw.
And then just do an addenda.
We could just do it at the interview. It was a typographical mistake. We want to edit. But this case had so many problems. She was not ready. There's a high chance it would be denied. And if there's fraud and misrepresentation on her, that would be really bad. So doing a withdrawal and doing a clean restart is just so much safer. That's why we choose to do that, right? I'm just thinking this is more art than it is science. I'm sure some people will disagree and say you should have just kept on going forward with it. You could have explained it, but there was just the 9 months out alone was almost a ground for the officer to deny it, right?
Right. And then the fact that she was married and then they claim she was single. So how do you, that's a material fact. Like you can't, how do you explain that? It is just an X in the application form, but how do you go from being married to claiming that you're single? Why? So anyway, she was extremely nervous, and during this time was when they were in scheduling N400 interviews. within 2 to 3 months.
Mm.
So she was really scared. She was like, I'm not ready for this. I'm really scared. And then this was during the ICE raids too.
Mm.
So, and she was local, so she was supposed to go to the LA field office.
Mm-hmm.
So she was extremely scared. She's like, no, I don't think I'm ready to continue. What can you do? Like, I don't want to present myself with an application that had all these mistakes. She's like, how am I going to explain? What can we do? So that was the approach when she contacted us. So I said, the only option that you have would be to just withdraw,
Yep.
right? Like, she's scared. She doesn't want to go to the interview. She thinks it's gonna, the interview is gonna come right away. So that's how we kind of came about the decision of just withdrawing. We refiled her application. We put all the information that she had based on, being married. And the ex-husband information was there. Oh, that's another thing. They didn't put, obviously, because they said she was single, they didn't mention anything about the divorce in the other application.
No,
So it was a lot of things. So then when we refiled, we listed everything correctly and then basically started to strategize for the interview. So number one is now she has to prove that she was legitimately married to the person that petitioned for her green card. Right? So gathering bona fide information that she probably used for her 485 interview, the first one, maybe even for her 751, but then even after the 751, because obviously if you just file 751 for the purpose of getting a 10-year green card and then you separate and divorce, how is that going to be interpreted at the interview? So gathering all the information, coaching her as to, okay, this is how you can explain, looking at all the evidence, sitting together like multiple times, phone calls, just to kind of like clarify questions and how do I go about this now? So because she had remarried and now her husband was undocumented, that was her other concern.
Yeah.
Should we put my husband's information? Because if ICE is coming for people after people that are undocumented, then what do? I said, you have no choice. You're legally married. There is a marriage certificate record. You need to list your husband. Are you sure everything is going to be okay? I said, we can't guarantee anything, but all I can tell you is that if you don't put that information, then if you ever petition for him, then how are you going to explain? Right? So just thinking about the long run. And I think this is the most important thing of doing a strategy sessions is not just thinking about how to solving this problem, but how the problems that you may encounter during this process are going to affect your future. Right? So anyways, we refiled. It took 3 months and a half and she was scheduled for an interview. She went down to Los Angeles. So she explained to me that she would go to Mexico almost every other weekend to see her parents, especially she had been going through a lot lately. She got divorced and then this law office did something wrong and she was just going through a lot in life. So she said, I go to visit my parents every other weekend. So now being 9 months out of the US, traveling back many times throughout the month, how do we explain that she is residing in the US, right? And how do we prove that? So it's like, okay, now you need to gather employment records. In the midst of all this, that new memo for the good moral character was published. So now you have to prove that you have good moral character in order to obtain citizenship. So it was a lot of little different steps that made a huge impact. So bona fide marriage, documentation, and physical presence and good moral character.
Wow.
So it was a lot. It was a big case. So she went to the interview and yes, her interview was pretty tough. It was really, really hard. The officer kept asking questions about her previous marriage and how long were they married and when did they separate and why did they decide to divorce? How long before they got married they met and why didn't they have any children? So it was a very tough interview. Then after she answered all those questions, the officer was kind of satisfied. Then it was like, why are you leaving the country so often? What's going on? Do you have a business out there? Are you running a company out there? What is holding you back? So she basically explained, my parents are back home and I've been going through a very difficult time, which was all true. And then here is all my tax returns. Here is my employment records. Here is, my community ties. So she had church attendance documents. She had, so just strategizing properly, she was prepared to fight this battle. And then she showed that to the officer, was like, okay, and what have you been doing to contribute to your community? So she was volunteering with the city that where she lives and with her employer to plant trees in different parks. And she had been doing that for like 5-6 years. It's not like right now, because a lot of people, start building evidence right before they file for the citizenship nowadays. So no, she had been ongoing, just volunteering with this foundation to plant trees in different parks.
Right.
So she went. Her interview took an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow.
So she was there for a good while. The officer is kind of like doing their thing. She said at some points of the interview, the officer was just quiet in the computer, just typing and writing a lot of information. So she was frightened. Like, it was a really tough officer. Like, he's not even making eye contact with me. He's not even talking to me. He's just like doing his thing, writing, and then so when she came out, she gave us a call. She pretty much gave me a rundown of everything, and I said, for now we can just what was the outcome? Like at the end, what did he say? That he's going to send something in the mail if he needs more information, or that he's going to send me a decision of how my application is going to be adjudicated. So it took a good 3 weeks before her out ceremony was scheduled.
Wow, awesome.
So very happy for her. Now she's working on petitioning for the new husband, but and that also comes with a lot of strategy.
Yeah, right.
And
that's like
that's the next step. But so she was extremely grateful just for the the moral support. And usually, as we've always said, you were usually on call when the clients go to interview.
Right.
We usually check in and check up because we understand how difficult it can be, right? Like if you're going to a hearing, anytime that you go to a government office, is naturally, something where you're like, okay, I hope everything goes okay. Right. Even DMV, right? Like you go in and you're like, oh, you're missing one piece of paper now. You need to come back and do the whole line again. Wait a whole day there. So, but no, just extremely happy that, she got to get her citizenship and that she's now ready for the next step.
If you guys have any questions about N400, about physical presence, about good moral character, feel free to reach out. Thank you. Bye-bye. Now it's our success story, and then we'll take some questions.
We'll take a few more questions. As a green card holder, what is the most amount of time to spend outside the U.S. with no issues?
Maximum amount of time to spend outside of the U.S. without issues. My question is, do you have a reentry permit? If you have a reentry permit, that is still valid, right? So the longest I've seen somebody, they fly into the United States, they apply for a reentry permit, they wait for about a month, they do the biometrics, they leave, all right? So they left, and now a year and a half goes by, the reentry permits gets approved, and then it's for 2 years, and then they fly back a week before the reentry permit expires. So in total, they're out of the U.S. for almost 3.5 years. So if you're asking, the maximum amount of time to leave the U.S. without any issues and to be confident, fairly confident, I would say that is the maximum.
What if they don't have a reentry permit?
If you don't have a reentry permit, I've seen some customs officers pull people's green cards if they left the U.S. for 3 months. So, I can't tell you, especially your pattern. Right? If you live in Canada or Mexico and you're flying or you're driving back and forth every other day or once a week, that might cause issues, right? So without a reentry permit, it's really hard to say what is the maximum without any problems. Generally speaking, 3 months, 4 months, one-time trip in the past 5 years, 10 years, a big sabbatical event, maybe it'll be fine. Being pulled into secondary and questioned, I don't know if you consider that an issue or not an issue. I wouldn't consider that an issue, right? Like if you left the U.S. for 3 months, you come back in, they pull you to secondary, they spend an hour, they question you for 10 minutes, you let go. I don't consider that an issue. But if you think that's an issue, then don't leave for 3-4 months, right? Maybe only leave for 1 month, right? So it's hard. It depends on the officer.
Okay, and that is our time, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Cool. See you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we will be live at this time, and you can always feel free to book a consultation on our website. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.